Boris Johnson can activate the anti-European reflexes of his fellow citizens at the push of a button. But does this also apply to the challenges ahead? In addition to the negotiations with Brussels, a hard blow is waiting for the British Prime Minister. Our country and these British Isles, these terms appeared 9 times in Boris Johnson's opening statement when he declared at the beginning of last week in the House of Commons the need to deliberately disregard the Brexit law that he himself had negotiated and signed. A statement with which the British Prime Minister launched the final attack on the friends and partners in Europe. He accused the European Union of putting a revolver on the table, wanting to split up our country, he said. Suddenly, clotted cream from Devon, which is supposed to go to Larne, Northern Ireland, is subject to 100% duty, even with a blockade threatening Northern Ireland's food supplies. This sounds amazing from a continental European perspective, and it's utter nonsense. But Johnson's tour seems to be working. Once again, the troops are gathering around the charismatic head of government in Parliament as well as before. The House of Commons dutifully helped the bill over the first hurdle. The narrative that the Prime Minister had to subsequently adopt a few protective measures to protect the United Kingdom because of Brussels chief negotiator Michel Barnier wanted to twist the British out of the treaty forged in October 2019 was caught at lightning speed. Johnson is able to activate the anti-European reflexes of his fellow citizens at the push of a button. The fact should serve as a warning to Europeans of what is yet to come. Things are anything but good for the British government, and not just when it comes to Brexit. London awaits the perfect storm. A hot autumn has already started, which could lead to a very cold winter. The real challenge for Johnson is not the dispute with the EU, but his crisis management of the corona pandemic. After a 6-month forced break, schools are now open, fortunately for millions of children and their working parents. But just after a week, the National Health Service, the NHS, ran out of corona tests. If you need a negative test to send your coughing child back to class, you end up in front of collapsing websites. At some point, maybe an appointment 5 hours away by car or offered in November. In corona strongholds such as Bolton and Blackburn, where local exit restrictions apply, there will be no more tests for the foreseeable future. The NHS is sounding the alarm because even doctors and nurses can no longer be tested. In the meantime, a backlog of 200,000 tests has formed in the English laboratories, which are now even being sent again to Germany and Italy for analysis. Johnson had promised the nation the world's best test system in early summer. He settled on it last week. His government will have a multi-billion-dollar mass test developed with results within 20 minutes. All of Johnson, he called the project Moon Rocket. The experts immediately classified it as illusory. Social media have already turned the moonshot into a moon... Like no other for the country, the WTO appeal, testing is necessary. At least 700,000 jobs have already been destroyed in the pandemic, and young people in particular have lost their jobs. Since March, the number of applications for unemployment benefits has increased by 121%. The hardest blow is yet to come. At the end of October, the short-time work program, which has kept almost 10 million employees afloat since mid-March only, ends at the end of October. Economists expect that at least another 500,000 people will no longer have a job from November. Meanwhile, Johnson tightened the corona exit restrictions again at the beginning of last week. Because the number of infections is skyrocketing in individual regions, citizens are now only allowed to be with groups of a maximum of 6 people, whether in the pub or at home. Not only economically, but also culturally, this last move is fueling sentiment in the UK. Neighbors should call the police if there is a meeting with more than 6 people in the next house, according to the official government line. An affront to the British, who instinctively do not interfere in other people's affairs and expect the same for themselves. Above all, Conservatives and thus Johnson's supporters rage against his planned Stasi snoopers. Yeah, we had that in Eastern Germany before the wall came down for decades, so I can imagine how the people feel. I was not living in the East, but still. So-called COVID marshals will soon patrol shopping streets and warn passers-by who do not keep the prescribed distance. For a long time, the Prime Minister could rely on extremely obedient citizens, but the tide is slowly turning against him. The self-provoked scandal with the EU suits Johnson against this background. At least when it comes to Brexit, ranks are closing behind the Prime Minister. Although all 5 living Prime Ministers have expressed their outrage in the past few days that the United Kingdom is openly violating international law and undermining the Brexit Treaty through national legislation, how does Johnson intend to accuse China or Iran of violating international law in the future if he doesn't follow this himself? Which impresses neither Johnson nor his followers. Rather, Blair, Major and co. serve as extras for a well-known drama to which Johnson owes his power. His ingeniously staged culture war against the establishment, be it in the person of former top politicians, high officials, constitutional judges or the EU. Even if Johnson has to ask Queen Elizabeth II to sign a law-breaking act later this year, after the law is passed, Johnson will come up with a narrative. With the same audacity with which Johnson is now attacking the EU again, he will also instrumentalize it in the eye of the perfect storm. An agreement with Brussels on future trade relations must be found by the beginning of November, otherwise there will be no deal. Heavy tariffs on EU imports and exports in Great Britain's most important market, but also supply bottlenecks due to new additions, are the Christmas present that Johnson will then give the British under the tree in addition to his corona crisis chaos. Johnson has long been responsible for who is to blame. Our friends and partners in Europe. And this blame game obviously will go on, but that doesn't matter for the UK people who will seriously be harmed by this situation. And if you now want to know more about European politics, YouTube has chosen another of my videos right here for you in the end screen, right next to your chance to subscribe to my channel, which I hope you already did. I'll see you in the next video. Click and enjoy. Viel Spaß!